Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today we'll continue our reading in channel Fikreatif Membaca or Fikreatif Reading. Today we will continue the reading of the title of today we will continue the reading from an article, not a book. The title is Revolution and Social Tension in Surakarta in 1945 until 1950, written by Suyatno, translated by Benedict Anderson. Okay, we'll start now. The first chapter is Social Structure and Cultural Orientation. Traditional terminology in Surakarta recognized three social classes. First, there were the Santono Dalam or Santono Dalam, Santono in Javanese people called, or family of the ruler, categorized as the group of noblemen and princes and those as the ruling class. Second, there were the Abdi Dalam, the officials or bureaucrats of the kingdom. The third were the Kawulo Dalam, the masses, in other words, the ruled. From this elementary division, it is clear that the first two classes were ruling classes, while the third was the ruled. This is according to the ruling social class indicates that the class which perform all political functions monopolize power and enjoys the advantage that power brings. The ruled class is the class that serves the ruling class. According to the ruling class by Gaetano Mosca in the New York McGraw Hill, 1939. The structure of a ruling class is determined by political type, cultural level, and individual differences. By taking these three factors into account, we can understand the totality of the social structure of feudal society. Kuncharaningrat has shown that Javanese society in general and Central Javanese society in particular was divided into two main groups. The first, the Wong Chile or little people. The Priyayi or gentry. This is according to Kuncharaningrat in his book Celapar, sebuah desa di Jawa Tengah bagian selatan. In Kuncharaningrat, masyarakat desa di Indonesia, published by University of Indonesia 1970. This division was very clear in Surakarta. The Santono Dalam and the Abdi Dalam, they could be categorized as the Priyayi, with the subdivision between Priyayi Gede, or in Javanese we call Priyagung, or upper Priyayi, and Priyayi Cilik, or lower Priyayi. The Kawulo Dalam corresponded to the Wong Cilik in connection with the trichotomy of Santri, Abangan, and Priyayi. I believe that in Surakarta essentially four groups existed. First, Santri, then Priyayi, then Abangan Priyayi, then Santri, Wong Cilik, and Abangan Wong Cilik. This is according to Clifford Geertz, The Religion of Java. For comparison of the division Priyayi and Wong Cilik and Santri Abangan Priyayi, see Sartono Kartodiharjo, The Peasants' Revolt of Banten in 1888, its condition, course, and sequel. Or in Sartono Kartodiharjo, struktur sosial dari masyarakat tradisional dan kolonial. The social distance between the Priyayi and the Wong Cilik was very great. This is according to the concept of social position is borrowed here from Nicholas Timashev in his book Sociological Theory, Its Nature and Growth, published by Random House in 1967 in New York. Social positions were very difficult to achieve, and social mobility from the Wong Chile up into the Priai was very rare. In Surakarta, the Santri Priai consisted mainly of officials in the religious domain. They were called Abdi Dalam Pangulon or Abdi Dalam Pametaan. The latter term being drawn from the root peta. Peta in Indonesia, in English, we call white. In Javanese, peta. As opposed to abang. Abang is it means red in abangan. The Abdi Dalam Pangulon consisted of penghulu with the rank of Raden Tumenggung. At the top, the Abdi Dalam Pangulon consisted of penghulu at the top, and then katib, and then ngulomo dalam, jaksa, ngulomo miji, muazin, mudarin, kabayan, syarif, and marbot. This is according to on the Abdi Dalam Pangulon. See the paper of this author, Kolonialisme Barat and Kemunduran Raja-Raja Surakarta abad 29, presented to the Second National Studies Seminar in Yogyakarta. Then another religious group which could be classified as religious official were the Abdi Dalam Suronatan. This is different with the Abdi Dalam Pangulon. Abdi Dalam Suronatan, who had special responsibility for taking care of the Suronata Mosque atau Masjid Suronatan and the Great Mosque atau Masjid Agung atau Masjid Gede. The Abdi Dalam Pangulon's function was to handle marriage and inheritance among the Piantun Dalam or the Priantun Jawi. The entire body of royal religious officials can be termed the official religious elite. The segment of this group which resided in the villages was known as the Abdi Dalam Perdikan. It consisted of Juru Tebah, Marbot, and Modin, whose responsibility was to take care of royal tombs outside the city. The Santri Wong Cilik generally included those who studied religion in pondok or pesantren under kiai or ulama. In relation to the traditional bureaucracy, this element can be classified as the unofficial religious elite. This is according to the footnote is Sartono Kartodiharjo on his book Cultural and Politics in Indonesia, published by Cornell University Press in 1972. The more important pesantren in Surakarta were Jamsaren, near the city. The pesantren Jamsaren is still exists today. And then Kacangan Boyolali, pesantren Kacangan is also exists today. And pesantren Kalioso in Sragen. I guess in Kalioso the pesantren is not existed today. During the revolution, the santri from this pesantren played a key role in organizing local defense. The Abangan Wong Cilik in general inhabited both the villages and the town. Most of the official staff of the Kalurahan Desa or administrative village were Abangan, except for the Mudin. And these people formed the village elite. This is within village government, the village elite consists of Lurah, Carik, Bayan, Ulu-Ulu, Mudin, Jogoboyo. You can check in Base of Conflict in Rural Java, published by University of Berkeley Research Monograph Series number 3, 1970. Before the proclamation of independence, there were other components of the village elite such as petinggi, Ronggo, Demang, etc. This is the bureaucrat in Indonesia before 1945. Okay, the Abangan Wong Cilik in general inhabited both the villages and the town. Most of the official staff of the Kelurahan Desa were Abangan, except for the Mudin, and these people formed the village elite. The typical feature of politics in the village as a traditional political institution was decision making by musyawarah and mufakat. The concept of gotong royong was exploited with brilliant success during the revolution for the purpose of repairing rail line, road, buildings, and irrigation system. Gotong royong also greatly facilitated mobilization for local defense. This is according to Jane Esmins by her or his book Muhammad, Marx, and Marhain, The Roots of Indonesian Socialism. Feudal society was also marked by two cultures, a palace culture, essentially priayi, and popular culture, essentially that of the Wong Cilik. This culture were distinctive in their use of language, art, morality, ethics, manner, dressing, and housing. In art, we find a palace art and popular art. In the Surakarta Kraton, for the example, the Bedoyo Ketawang, a magisio-religious dance of great refinement and complex symbolism was performed. By contrast, the dance of the Wong Cilik in the villages, such as Tari Tayub, Ande-ande Lumut, and so forth, were marked by their spontaneity. Among the Wong Cilik wayang was and is extremely important. It is the popular art form for ceremonial purposes, for example, birth, marriages, village purification, harvest celebration, and etc. And feudal culture, as a culture whole, thus consisted of subculture created by the priayi and a contra-culture created by the Wong Cilik. This is according to the full detail about Bedoyo Ketawang. You can see the right of Hadi Wijoyo in his book Bedoyo Ketawang, published by Radio Pustoko in 1971. And the term contra-culture and subculture are borrowed from J. Milton Yinger in his book Study, page 1827 until 38. And then according to Kirab Pusoko Kraton Surakarta, published by Radio Pustoko in 1972, the main Kraton Pusoko are the first spears. That is Kanjeng Kiai Kebomas and Kanjeng Kiai Panotomas, Kiai Slamet, Kiai Baru. And then the second, Kris. Kris by Kanjeng Kiai Balabar, Kanjeng Kiai Baruang, and etc. And then the third, various pennants. And then the fourth, Kraton pet animals such as white water buffalo, Kiai Slamet. We can see then that the class division between the priayi and the Wong Cilik gave rise to the culture dualism between priayi culture and Wong Cilik culture. During the revolution, however, priayi culture carried along by the flow of the national revolution became democratized, so that in the end there was no great difference left between it and Wong Cilik culture. To give power to the ruler and to ensure the security and well-being of his government, ceremonies and offerings were continually made within the palace. One ceremony which was very popular in Sudanese society was the Kirab Pusoko Kraton on the first of Javanese month Suro. Suro is the first Javanese month at adapted from Islamic calendar. In Islamic calendar, we say Muharram, but in Javanese people, they say the first month of Javanese people is Suro. People believe that kirab pusaka could protect them from sickness and social disorder and could ensure that their life would be toto tentrem karto raharjo. The word the word karto tentrem karto raharjo, we can say, atau it means it's about the manifestation of power, or according to Benedict Anderson, the idea of power in Javanese culture. And then second chapter about the formation of Laskar-Laskar Rakyat in Surakarta. The months September to December 1945 were period. The month September to December 1945 were the period when the Laskar were formed by the Pemuda of Surakarta. They were initially subsumed in the Badan Keamanan Rakyat or BKR. In October 1945, the Badan Keamanan Rakyat, the military and police occupied the Kempeitai, or Japanese military police headquarters in Timuran. After this event, a variety of different Laskar organizations sprang up both in the town and in the villages. Each Laskar organization had its own peculiar form and style. Some of the important popular movements were the Barisan Laskar Banteng, or BLB, with green uniforms, and then they are under Dr. Muardi. Now, Dr. Muardi, the name of Dr. Muardi become the name of a hospital in Surakarta. And then the Pemuda Sosialis Indonesia, or PESINDO, and then the Barisan Pemberontak Republik Indonesia, or BPRI, which was made up of Pemuda from all social strata, and the Laskar Rakyat, which used yellow form. According to my informants, the most important role in Surakarta itself was taken by student Laskar. Prior to the formation of the Student Army, or TP, Tentara Pelajar, students had been mobilized into various organizations, including the Pasukan Satria, or PS, Laskar Kere, or KR, the Barisan Polisi Istimewa Sekolah Menengah Tinggi, or BPI-SMT, the Barisan Pemuda Jelata, or BPJ, and the BPRI. The Student Army itself was only formed in September 1946. According to the same informants, the leaders were Prakosa, Subroto, and Ahmadi. The name Ahmadi now become a name of street in Surakarta, Jalan Mayor Ahmadi. This is based on the interview with Supardi, Supeno, and Sudarmo on April 20, 1973 and May 1973. According to Supardi, Prakoso led the students' army very ably. His outstanding qualities were simplicity, honesty, courage, and an ability to look properly after his subordinates. Then, the members of TP, or Tentara Pelajar, got their education on the battlefield, especially during the Independence War. Their teachers were known as guru-guru perjuangan, or resistance teachers. This information, according to interview with, or based on interview with Sudarmono in May 1973. In the middle of 1974, The Gabungan Laskar Perjuangan Surakarta was set up in which the student army played a key military, political, and social role. The Gabungan had the responsibility of collecting foodstuffs and sending pejuang up to the front lines. The student army and the military established a city military command, which included 3 student army people as leaders. They are Ahmadi, Prakoso, and Alatif. On March 27, 1948, the Students' Army became a purge of people from the PPRI and the Banteng Laskar who were involved in corruption, black marketing, and robbery. They regarded these acts as deviation from the revolution. This is based on Sartono Link's action of this type with social unrest. See his writing on Peasants' Revolt, page 134. At the beginning of 1946, local defense organizations were also formed in the rural areas. They were composed of village youth, political leaders, and religious notables. The name of this organization varied from area to area. Among them may be mentioned the Laskar Rakyat Surakarta or LRS in the village of Plupuh Sragen, and then Pemuda Laskar Rakyat PLR, the Pemuda Penjaga Desa or PPD, the Pelopor Laskar Rakyat PLR, and Markas Pertahanan Rakyat or MPR. Frequently, more than one Laskar organization could be found in a single village. For example, in Plupuh Sragen, there was a Pemuda Laskar Rakyat or PLR and a Gerakan Sabilillah, an Islamic military organization of Laskar. The latter was led by Musaban, who aroused the local Islamic youth with the jihad spirit. Gerakan Sabilillah. The Pemuda organization for the Kabupaten of Sragen was the Angkatan Muda Sukawati or AMS, among whose leaders were Panudi, Indarjo, and Sumo Darmojo. According to the statement of the AMS itself, it wanted the formation of an autonomous government in the Kabupaten of Sragen, no longer linked to the royal government. The AMS subsequently played an important political role. It later changed its name to Badan Perjuangan Angkatan Muda Sukawati or BPAMS. According to Toto Siswanto, one of its leaders, the BPAMS atau Badan Perjuangan Angkatan Muda Sukawati was extremely active in support of the military during the Independence War of 1948. All the village defense organizations aroused spontaneously and elected their own leadership. They collected material, primarily foodstuffs, from the local peasantry. In this context, the role of the village headman in collecting material and mobilizing manpower was very important. During the War of Independence, all members of the village defense units participated in the guerrilla fighting. The villagers formed pasukan guerrilla desa, village guerrilla unit, or pager desa. This is according to the Kodim pager also means fence. Pager, it means in English fence. Peasants who sold their produce in the town often provided information on concentration of Dutch military strength to the pager desa or to other military units. Members of the pager desa used geranggang, pointed bamboo staffs, and then bamboo spears, machetes, and bandil. Bandil is a kind of weapon used by Kraton soldiers for hurling stones. They also use jimat. Jimat is kind of amulets, such as Tanjung Sari and Kulbuntet to ward off danger from the enemy. Jimat can give protection from danger, sickness, and death, and can increase vulnerability. This is according to Sartono Kartodirjo in his book Agrarian Radicalism. Some of them also used to perform topo or semedi, ascetic meditation, in solidarity places such as Mount Lawu. For according to popular belief, the Sunan Lawu would give strength or power to those who meditated on this mountain. Meditation on Mount Lawu is still practiced today by the Javanese in general and in particular by the people of Central Java. Topo and Semedi on this mountain are done to achieve security and prosperity, and then Kasakten, a kind of magical power and good fortune. Topo and Semedi are an important element of Javanese cultural life, occurring not only in Surakarta but also in the region of Java. Smale has already pointed to this phenomenon in his study of the story of the revolution in Bandung. You can see the written of John Smale on his book Bandung in the Early Revolution 1945 until 1946, a study in the social history of the Indonesian Revolution, published by Colonel Modern Indonesia Project. Still other members of the Pakardeso visited guru-guru ngilmu, kind of teachers or esoteric knowledge, and dukun to obtain invulnerability, safety, or military prowess. They called themselves Tunggal Guru or Tunggal Banyu, meaning that here were elements loyal to their guru. Some example of this phenomena were the pilgrimage of some Laskar Rakyat elements to the village of Cokrotulung to obtain invulnerability from Kiai Mangun Hartono. According to Sunarti, a member of the Laskar Rakyat or PKR, who once visited Kiai Mangun Hartono in 1947. All his pupils were forbidden to eat for 7 or even sometimes up to 40 days. The ban was on food with salt in it. In Javanese, we call poso mutih. After these pupils had completed their assigned tasks, the guru tested their invulnerability or kasakten. Some members of the student army also went to the home of Kiai Jurumartani to obtain invulnerability, according to Saryono, Sunardi, and Sudarmo. All who came to the Kiai were given charms for invulnerability, but they also had to go without food or drink for a week. Some people from other Laskar units went to the village of Parakan in Kedu to get invulnerability from sharpened bamboo spears. It is certainly true that the gerakan bambu runcing from Parakan was famous at the time among the members of the Laskar organization and the military. They believe that sharpened spears from Parakan had real kasakten and were full of magic. In this respect, the gerakan bambu runcing of Parakan can be compared with the gerakan tebu ireng from Jombang. The third chapter, Social Conflict and Social Unrest. The Indonesian Revolution of 1945 until 1950 can well be described as multi-complex. Taufik Abdullah has stated that the Indonesian Revolution has a multi-complex revolution in one generation, full of energy, romanticism, and etc. It was not merely decolonization, but a revolution full of It was not merely decolonization, but a revolution full of social tensions and political conflicts between social classes. Some example of social tension. Some examples of social tensions in 1946 are: first, the social revolution in North Sumatra. See Indonesian Society in Transition, written by W.F. Berthim. And then nationalism and revolution in Indonesia. In Bali, second, in Bali, social tension developed between the kaum ningrat, aristocracy, and the masses who were led by the civilization nationalist elite. The kaum ningrat came together in Dewan Raja-Raja, Council of Rulers. You can see this research on the writing of Nyoman Espendit, Bali Berjuang, or the formation of Federal Indonesia. The Balinese Council of Rulers clearly supported the 1946 federative government of Bali, linking together the 8 principality of Bali. And then third, in Surakarta, from 1946 on, social tension arose between the kaum ningrat and the mass of the population. The Indonesian Revolution of 1945 until 50 will be described as multi-complex. It was not merely decolonization, but a revolution full of social tension and political conflict between social classes. In the realm of politics and ideology, there was a struggle to the death between Masyumi, Majelis Syuro Muslimin Indonesia, and the communists, which culminated in the communist rebellion at Madiun. The Linggarjati and Renville Agreement sharpened the antagonism between the communist group and the socialist group led by Sultan Syahrir. The People Democratic Front, or FDR, a political instrument of the communists, publicly denounced the Renville Agreement and began to purge itself of Syahrir's followers. In the early months of 1948, the FDR began to gather its force to confront the government. The strength of the FDR rests on, the first, the loyalty of the military to Sarifuddin, who was the Minister of Defense, and then the second, Sopsi. But at the time of the 1948 Madiun coup, it did not in fact get full support from this group. Political antagonism at the national level political antagonism as the national level exerted a powerful influence on political antagonism and social tension in Surakarta. On June 27, 1946, Prime Minister Syahrir was kidnapped in Surakarta by an unknown gang. But it could be assumed that the group behind the kidnapping came from Syahrir's political opposition. It was socialist versus communist, with the communist leader taking a strong opposition line against the government, which were pursuing a policy of negotiation with the Dutch. At the same time, domestic political factors caused civil wars and political conflicts in various regions. Strong communist opposition to the Syahrir government developed from January 1946. In June 1946, Tan Malaka's communist group attempted a coup d'etat, kidnapping Syahrir and some of his colleagues. Through his Persatuan Perjuangan, or PP, Tan Malaka consistently tried to overthrow the government. You can see the writing of Hall on his book A History of Southeast Asia, page 720 until 721. The central government's policy of appointing Iskak as resident of Surakarta and Raden Sudiro as vice president caused several Badan Perjuangan to react with a joint resolution. On October 8, 1946, they conveyed their resolution to the government. On November 9, Resident Iskak and Sudiro were kidnapped by an unidentified political organization. Raden Sutarjo Karto Hadikusumo took over the position of resident, but as he was in favor of the feudal group, the Sunanate and the Mangkunegaran, the political parties and the member of the DPRD refused to accept him. One can see in all this conflict a small segment of the government elite trying to help the Kaum Ningrat to restore their authority. Reaction came swiftly from those political parties who called themselves the Kaum Revolutionary. Yet among the Ningrat or Priai, there were people who were regarded as revolutionary Priai. Among them, for example, Mr. Sumodi Ningrat, Mr. Suryo Hamijoyo, the both are members of the Surakarta KNI, and Mloyo Sunarjo, whose houses were used for political gatherings and meetings of guerrilla leaders. In August and September 1948, serious social and political conflict arose between the Badan Perjuangan, the Laskar, and the military and the political parties. The communists certainly regarded the Hatta government's policy of rationalization and demobilization as a deviation from the revolution. Demonstration against rationalization took place in Surakarta and Blitar. Under the influence of the communist leader Muso, the 4th Division Senopati in Surakarta refused to accept either demobilization or rationalization. Instead, it demanded that the government withdraw the 3rd Division Siliwangi from Surakarta. The Siliwangi Division, well known as the Hijrah Army or the Pocket Army. They had arrived in Surakarta in February 1948. On September 13, 1948, there occurred the Srambatan Affair. The barracks of the Hijrah Army or Siliwangi Army were attacked by the group from Al-Ri or Navy, which supported the communists under the leadership of Mr. Amir Sharifuddin. For more detail, you can see Kenang-kenangan Kota Besar Surakarta, published by Jawatan Penerangan Surakarta in 1953, page 12 until page 30. On page 12 until 13. In rural areas, for example, in Sragen, Klaten, and Karanganyar, the communists tried to get support from peasants who had joined Prakoso, which is Perkumpulan Kawulo Surakarta. It is clear that the communists looked for their backing among the Wong Abangan of the peasantry. And in Pokoso, they urged the Wong Chile to oppose the Wong Priayi. The influence of the communists in the rural areas meant a politicization of the peasantry and mobilization of the villagers. Political conflict arose between the pro-communist Wong Tani and the anti-communist Wong Tani, especially the Kaum Santri. Wong Tani, it means farmers. When the Madiun affair erupted, this political conflict reached their culmination in killing, which among the rural communities of Surakarta were known as Belehan PKI Muso, slaughter of Muso's PKI. This is the conflict between Kaum Santri and communists. Social political conflicts also arose between the feudalist, let's say priayi, and the santri. And on December 20, 1948, the Dutch entered the city of Surakarta in order to establish their authority. They received help from a portion of the priayi. Bad economic conditions since the beginning of 1946 had caused the spread of corruption, embezzlement of the assets of state enterprises, anarcho-syndicalism in the region controlled by the Republic of Indonesia. Economic condition of this type also spawned an increase in banditry and robbery. This can be shown to have occurred in various regions including Surakarta. In 1947, some members of Barisan Pemberontak Republik Indonesia or BPRI under Marzuki committed robberies in the countryside, especially in the village of Cokrotulung in Kabupaten Boyolali and various places in Solotigo and Ungaran. Some members of the ALRI in Surakarta did likewise. For example, Ahmad Jadau. It is clear that the action of the pejuang very frequently resembled banditry. Haha, ngeri. Sudarmo say that both Marzuki and Ahmad Jadau were killed by members of the student army or tentara pelajar. In 1948, we in Surakarta got to know the names of well-known robbers who were much feared by the people. Prawiro Adi Joyo committed robberies in the city itself. In the Kabupaten of Sragen, a prominent robber named Dulatif did likewise in the town. And in the village of Sidoharjo, Kabupaten Sragen, the villagers were thrown into great confusion by criminals and robbers. In Sragen, the Kabupaten government established a court of summary justice known by the name Snelrechten, to sentence the criminal. Snelrechten. This is by the interview with Sumo Darmojo, member of the summary court. It is clear that social unrest helped to cause these robberies, banditries, and chaos. Social protests accompanied by vandalism occurred when the local people attacked foreign Asiatics, especially Chinese and Arabs, who were classed as bourgeois. In 1949, the people burned shops belonging to Chinese, for example, Toko Obral. Wow, Toko Obral, no, it's not exist, but a very long time shop. And Toko Engbu. The people also burned Kampung Arab, a batik manufacturing center near the Pasar Kliwon. This incident came to be known as the Anwar Sunkar incident. Oh, I see. Yeah. Some Arabs under the leadership of Anwar Sunkar helped the Dutch by pointing out guerrilla centers of the Laskar organization. In December 1948, the Chinese in the Kabupaten of Sragen formed a committee to welcome the Dutch troops, which was called the Ontvangst Committee. I can pronounce ONTVANGST Committee. The mass of the local people protested against these Chinese, and so social conflicts arose between the people and the Chinese. In the area of Kedawung and Gondang, there were some Chinese killed. Okay. Social protests resulting from low wages of teachers in the Mangkunegaran came from the Teacher Association of the Kabupaten of Karanganyar, especially from the Kapanewon of Tawangmangu, Kapanewon. This teacher association under Cipto Suwiknyo had sent a formal resolution of protest to the Mangkunegoro. The main point of the resolution was that they wanted to be freed from the control of Mangkunegoro's administration. In the tide of revolution, the traditional bureaucratic elite, which consisted of the aristocrats and princes, tried to get help from the lower classes which were still loyal. Some princes such as Gusti Suryo Mijoyo, Gusti Joyo Kusumo, and Pangeran Mangkubumi tried to get assistance from the peasants who supported the Perkumpulan Kawulo Surakarta, Pokoso. In 1950, Joyo Kusumo organized a meeting of Pokoso peasants in the Sasono Mulyo, name of a place in the Kraton. The aim of the meeting was to re-establish a Swapraja government or autonomous royal. All the Pokoso members who came from rural areas in the Kabupaten of Sragen and Klaten supported this plan of the Priai. We know, of course, that the Abangan peasantry with traditionalist ideas and the traditional social types were glad to support the feudal system of the administration. But as a result, the mass of the people who called themselves kaum revolutionaire formed an anti-Swapraja committee. Political protests came from the parties against the Priai, and this party publicized the slogan of anti-feudalism among the mass of the local people. Okay. Administrative changes. Dutch colonialism has a great impact in Surakarta after 19. Oh, no. Dutch colonialism had a great impact in Surakarta after 1847. How great the chances were can be seen from the reorganization of territories of Surakarta by the Dutch government in Stadblad 1847 and 1848. The changes were proposed by Van Ness, the advisor to the principalities. Okay. The change introduced into the system of royal administration went right down to the village level. The structure of royal government now had as its apex of the office of the Kapatihan under the Patih, who was assisted in his function by 4 Bupati Nayoko. Okay, the entire corps of officials in the Kapatihan were known as the Reh Kepatian. The second level of the government was the Kabupaten, under a Bupati assisted by a Bupati Anom. The third was the district under a Panewu. The fourth was the sub-district under an assistant Wedono or Mantri under district. And the fifth was the Kalurahan Desa under a Kepala Desa or village headman. Okay. This Bupati Nayoko were Bupati Kaparak Kiwo, Bupati Keparak Tengen, Bupati Gedong Kiwo, and Bupati Gedong Tengen. Okay. After the proclamation of independence, the governance of the territory of Surakarta was regulated by laws promulgated by the central government. In September 1945, a Comité Nasional Daerah or KND was formed, headed by KHP 8 Mr. Sumo Diningrat, assisted by 9 others. On October 1st, 1945, a governing council was formed under Suprapto, Sutopo Adi Saputro, and Sumantri. The formation of the council can be seen as the beginning of the democratization of the traditional bureaucracy. At same point, the central government appointed R.P. Suroso as High Commissioner in Surakarta. The working committee of the KNDs urged the formation of a directorate system of government. This meant the development of a collegial administration shared between the Sunanate, the Mangkunegaran, and the Republic's territorial administration. But the Sunanate and the Mangkunegaran refused to send representatives to participate in this new structure. It was the Mangkunegaran which was most strongly opposed. Whoa. It seems clear that this intent demonstrates how, in the process of changing the nature of local government in Surakarta, the aristocrats act as an obstructionist social force. Yeah. The central government proposed the formation of special committee to draw up legal provisions regulating the government of the Sunanate and the Mangkunegaran. Membership of this committee consisted of the members of the kaum ningrat who could be termed revolutionary aristocrats, including Mr. Atmodiningrat, G.P.H. Hadiwijoyo, an intellectual political elites, religious leader, for example, I.J. Kasimo, Singge Suprapto, Sindu Sawarno, Sindi Rejo, and Sarsadi. This committee decided to reject the formation of special region and, on the contrary, to support the formation of a normal residency. However, the Ministry of the Interior, then under Dr. Sudarsono, wanted to form a special region, as was done in Yogyakarta. Very rapidly, there sprang up groups which were pro and anti the formation of a special region, and among the officials employed in the Sunanate and Mangkunegaran administration, serious political conflict developed. The main reason for the great difficulty that the central government experienced in forming a regional government in Surakarta were A. The psychology of the aristocrats, B. Political mobilization in this area, C. The popular will to change the feudal system and make Surakarta an integral part of the national stage. In this context, it was widely felt that the kaum ningrat group would have to change their attitude and support the national revolution. At the beginning of June 1946, a People's and Army Territorial Government of Surakarta was formed. This new structure of loyal government was run by a working committee made up of military men, party leaders, and religious notables. Okay. Among the leaders of the political parties at the time, the more noteworthy names included Subodhiharjo, Sujono, Sudiro, Sutarto. This government had the following section in it: general affairs, social affairs, economic affairs, security, and civil service. Okay. Governor Suryo was appointed by the center to act as advisor to this government. Shortly thereafter, a Surakarta Regional Defense Council was established. In August 1946, these bodies were replaced by a Badan Legislative and Badan Executive, or Legislative and Executive Body. In the end, the Residency of Surakarta was ruled by the resident together with the execution body, which was composed of party representatives from the PNI, and then the PS, and then Masyumi, and the PBI and youth. There is no from PKI. It is understandable, therefore, that in August 1946, the structure of government in Surakarta consisted of residency, kabupaten, kawadanan, and kalurahan, and that in the city itself, a special administrative unit was created, now later as the Haminte or Haminte. Governance was carried out by the executive body and the Badan Perwakilan Rakyat. Badan Perwakilan Rakyat. The Residency of Surakarta now consisted of the Kabupaten of Boyolali, Klaten, and Sragen. This is from the old Sunanate. And Wonogiri and Karanganyar, this is from the old Mangkunegaran. With the With the formation of the municipal government known as the Haminte, Surakarta became the first autonomous city formed by the central government. The establishment of the Haminte meant the unification of the zones of the city formerly under Sunan Pakubuwono XII and Mangkunagara VIII. In December 49, the government of the military governor of the second special region formed a military administration. 2 days later, it was announced that there would be only one government in the residency, the government of the Republic of Indonesia, and that the city would be governed by a mayor. In March 1950, the Sunanate and the Mangkunagaran were frozen, and their administrative authority was reduced to the internal affairs of their kraton. Ho ho ho. This freezing was done on the basis of the decision of the Minister of the Interior of March 3rd, 1950. Okay. Most of their officials transferred to the Republic's administrative structure. Only a very small fraction stayed loyal to the Sunan and the Mangkunagara. An important development in the rural areas was the formation thereof autonomous local governments, a process which began at the start of 1946. In the villages there developed what was called daulat. Daulat, it means, as Smale explained, the word daulat is an old word meaning homage, which is the root of the modern word kedaulatan or sovereignty. What else? Okay. In the village, there developed what was called daulat. Village head who had held their posts from before 1945 were elected again by the people. Okay. So the villages heads or kepala desa who had held their posts from before 1945 were elected again by the people until now. The revolutionary process in the countryside thus resulted in the defeudalization and democratization. For the duration of the Independence War of 1947 and 1948, military governments were established at the kecamatan and village levels. This also meant growing political mobilization in the village as a result of the revolution. And in the rural areas, the new political group succeeded in the taking power in various localities. Political group is one whose administrative staff enforce order within a given territorial area by application and threat of physical force. 45. Last conclusions. Research on the history of the revolution in a region of Indonesia reveals that it was influenced by socio-cultural factors. Here, the ecological and micro-sociological aspect must be studied to be able to develop a detailed microhistory. On the concept of microhistory, see Sartono Kartodiharjo on his book Beberapa Masalah Teori and Metodologi Sejarah Indonesia. The Indonesian revolution was not simply a process of decolonization. It was a total revolution which involved the spontaneous struggle of the people. We know well the role of the people in the villages and in the towns, in the guerrilla fighting. The Indonesian revolution was not merely a struggle between the diplomats in the elite and the Dutch, but involved the formation of ideas for transforming the system of government from a colonial to a national structure. In this transitional period, There arose new social classes which tried to push forward the current of the revolution both at the national and the regional levels. The popular struggle was accompanied by social and political conflicts between different groups in society. The popular organization in principle accepted the general values of the revolution. The political process during the revolution can be viewed as a social interaction between different groups in society. This political process gave rise to political tension between the political parties and the government and the governmental elite, which was very evident in the frequency with which cabinet fell. Closer contact between villagers and government officials and the military caused a political mobilization in the rural areas. The social classes arose in the villages, which led the rural revolution as part of the national revolution. They formed semi-military, political, and religious organizations to defend the revolution. They led their areas by selecting their own leaders. Conservative element in the feudal group sharpened the antagonism between them and the revolutionaries. The revolutionaries had many progressive elements, idealism, especially among the youth, with the fullest hopes for the future. So it can no longer be doubted that Indonesian revolution was a revolution full of social and political crises. In strongly feudal region, there occurred a cultural disintegration as a result of the process of democratization and other general values of revolution. It is clear that Indonesian revolution was multi-complex in the social transformation that it brought about. So this paper telling us about the revolution and social tension in Surakarta, in conflict between royal families, Sundanite and Mangkunegaran royal family, and people we call Wong Chile. So in 1945 and until 1950, the Surakarta very full of conflict between communism, between communists and Muslim, and then between Kraton, between feudalism and people majority in Surakarta. Okay, thank you very much for your attention. We will continue to read another topic, another books or another paper about others. Thank you very much for your attention. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Stay tune di channel ini dan jangan lupa subscribe serta nyalakan loncengnya.